Garrosh, son of Grommash, Hellscream, and Gul'dan of the Warsong clan, was born on Draenor. During his youth, he contracted the Red Pox and was sent to live in Garradar. The Red Pox is a disease created by Imperator Moloch of Goria. Under constant siege by the orcs, Moloch needed a way to break the siege to restore his land-based trade routes, as sea trade alone could not sustain them. Moloch sought out Apexis crystals, hoping they would provide a solution. The crystals revealed the Curse of Seath, a dreadful affliction that tormented the Arakoa with visions of darkness and intense pain, searing their flesh and tearing at their minds. This curse stripped the Arakoa of their ability to fly, often leading to death or insanity, with only the strongest being able to resist its effects. Inspired by this, Moloch aimed to create a similar reaction in the orcs, resulting in the Red Pox. The orcs of Garradar, who proudly called themselves Maghar, meaning uncorrupted in the orcish tongue, embraced Garrosh. However, he was haunted by tales of his father's legacy. The stories of Grommash's tumultuous past tormented him, instilling a deep fear that he might one day lead the Maghar down a similarly dark path. A side note on the Red Pox: it was later modified by the Shadow Council and mixed with their fell energies, which they released into Shatroth City. The fell plague was loaded into bombs and lobbed at Shatroth. When the vapors from the plague reached the Draenei, they immediately began choking. The exposure caused the surviving Draenei to be cut off from the light, transforming them into the Broken, and eventually the Lost Ones. The most well-known survivors are Nabundo and Akama. Garrosh vividly recalled his first visit to Orgrimmar. As the first Maghar to set foot in the city, he drew curious and odd gazes. An old soldier from the First War who remembered serving alongside his father approached him. The retired warrior expressed pride in seeing Grom's legacy continue and declared he would gladly serve under Garrosh if given the chance, assuring him that he would make their people proud. However, not everyone welcomed Grom's heir. An orc woman named Grenna openly dismissed his lineage, blaming Grom for cursing their people with bloodlust. She had little regard for Garrosh himself. From Krenna, Garrosh learned about the harsh realities facing the orcs. Life in Durotar was a constant struggle. The arid desert made farming impossible, and while the markets were well stocked, they relied heavily on imports from distant lands. Though Ashenvale Forest could meet their needs, War Chief Thrall had prohibited settlement there, and night elves frequently ambushed their lumber caravans. Compounding their woes, humans from Northwatch Hold and dwarves from Baal Modan contested their sovereignty in the Barrens, and remnants of Admiral Proudmoore's Kultiras forces raided Razor Hill unchecked. Their challenges bred bitterness and frustration among orcs like Krenna, who grew increasingly disillusioned with their leadership. This exposure to the stark challenges of his people deepened Garrosh's understanding of the burdens he would bear as a leader. Garrosh, infuriated by Krenna's disdainful attitude towards Thrall and Grom, threatened to assault her if she continued her treasonous talk. Before the situation could escalate, Krenna's sister Gorgana stepped in to diffuse the tension, urging Krenna to walk away. Reluctantly, Krenna complied, leaving Gorgana to apologize on her behalf. Gorgana explained to Garrosh that her sister failed to understand that their people lived in Durotar as a way to atone for the crimes committed during the First War. Garrosh, equally frustrated, argued that the orcs had done what was necessary to survive, and questioned why the children, who had nothing to do with the war, should suffer for their parents' sins. In response, Gorgana revealed her green skin, a lasting mark of their people's legacy. She expressed her willingness to atone in whatever way their war chief saw fit, emphasizing that Garrosh, being a Maghar, was free from such burdens and couldn't fully grasp their struggle. This conversation deepened Garrosh's understanding of the complex legacy and challenges faced by his people in Azeroth. Garrosh was stunned that Thrall could be so seemingly unreasonable. Krenna's words gnawed at him, and the more he reflected on them, the more his frustration and impatience grew. He found himself increasingly irritated by Thrall's lack of decisive action against the Alliance and the Scourge. It infuriated him to see orcish resources and forces being divided to address the problems of other Horde races, while their own people suffered. The Scourge's relentless attacks, infecting their food supplies with plague and raining death upon them, left Garrosh seething with anger. Thrall's refusal to unleash the full might of the Horde in retaliation was a source of constant frustration. Determined to preserve Orgrimmar and restore the Orcs' former glory, Garrosh resolved to take matters into his own hands, even if it meant challenging Thrall's leadership to do so. Thrall brought Garrosh back to Azeroth, appointing him as one of his advisors. Later, the retired gladiator master Rhaegar Earthfury also joined Thrall's council. From the beginning, Rhaegar and Garrosh clashed. Garrosh, harboring deep resentment towards the Alliance, sought to destroy them and claim Azeroth for the Horde. In contrast, Rhaegar favored diplomacy, advocating for the preservation of the non-aggressive treaty with Theramore. When Thrall decided to meet with the human king Varian, he chose to bring both Rhaegar and Garrosh, along with some Kor'kron guards. Rhaegar advised against bringing Garrosh, fearing his aggressive tendencies would be counterproductive. However, Thrall believed that exposing Garrosh to diplomatic efforts might help him reconsider his hostile stance towards the humans. Garrosh, accompanying Thrall, traveled by Zeppelin to Theramore for a meeting with Varian. While Thrall and Varian engaged in a peaceful discussion focused on mutual gain, Garrosh believed it would be better for the Horde to take what they needed by force rather than negotiate resources. The meeting was abruptly cut short when Varian received news of simultaneous scourge attacks on Goldshire and South Shore. As they were leaving Theramore, the Twilight's Hammer Cult launched an invasion on the city. Amidst the chaos, Varian caught a glimpse of Garona and recalled his father's assassination by the Shadow Council, suspected Thrall of sending her to kill him. Garrosh in turn accused the Alliance of orchestrating the attack to trap him and Thrall, while Varian accused the Horde, and specifically Garrosh, of attempted assassination. Though tempers flared and accusations flew, Thrall managed to ensure their departure from Theramore remained peaceful. Despite leaving without further conflict, Garrosh felt that Varian's accusations had insulted the Orcs' honor, and that their peaceful exit had caused the Orcs to lose face at the summit. Garrosh attended a crucial meeting in Orgrimmar with Thrall, Lady Sylvanas Windrunner, High Overlord Sourfang, Grand Apothecary Putris, and Rhaegar Earthfury to discuss their strategy against the Scourge. Thrall, after consulting Sourfang and the spirits, advocated for a cautious approach, sending an advanced scouting party to the frozen continent before committing troops, and meeting with Jaina Proudmoore to gauge the Alliance's plans regarding the Lich King. Garrosh, however, was vehemently opposed to dealing with the Alliance. He argued that such dealings would endanger the Horde and instead proposed a bold plan: to conquer the humans first and then march to Northrend to crush the Scourge, asserting that the Horde should rule all of Azeroth. Thrall was frustrated by Garrosh's recklessness and constant challenges to his authority. He retorted that the humans were not a threat, and that underestimating the Lich King by blindly marching into a Scourge trap would be a grave mistake. Tensions peaked when Thrall, provoked by Garrosh's defiance, insinuated that he would not repeat the mistakes of Garrosh's father. Enraged by the perceived insult to his father's legacy and Thrall's perceived inaction, Garrosh challenged Thrall to a duel in the Ring of Valor to settle their differences once and for all. The two Orcs clashed fiercely in the Ring of Valor, with Garrosh gradually gaining the upper hand. As he began to taunt Thrall, their battle was abruptly interrupted by a herald of the Lich King, who threatened Orgrimmar with destruction. In response, Thrall struck Garrosh with a chain lightning spell, halting the duel. He told the younger Hellscream that their dispute would be settled later, as they both left the ring to face the imminent threat. The city came under attack by a horde of abominations, frostworms, and a few Death Knights. Thrall and Garrosh, alongside Sourfang, Sylvanas, Rhaegar, city defenders, and adventurers, led the Horde forces in repelling the Scourge assault. Once the Scourge was driven back, Garrosh again requested to be sent to Northrend. This time, Thrall agreed and instructed Sourfang to begin preparations for war. Before constructing Warsong Hold, the Horde established Garrosh's Landing, named in honor of Garrosh Hellscream, who led the fleet of Orcish destroyers that landed on Northrend's western coast. This site served as their main port until they decided to build their fortress inland. Garrosh was then appointed Overlord of the Warsong Offensive, the primary force of the Horde expedition, and he set up his command post at Warsong Hold. In stark contrast to his downtrodden and apathetic demeanor in Nagrand, Garrosh became hot-blooded and reckless as a Horde commander in Northrend. His chief advisor, High Overlord Sourfang, who had once drank from the same chalice that corrupted Grom Hellscream, cautioned against Garrosh's brutal tactics, fearing a resurgence of the bloodlust that had plagued the Horde before Manaroth's death. The two frequently clashed over tactical decisions, especially concerning the supply lines between Warsong Hold and the Forsaken forces in Howling Fjord. Despite their disagreements, Garrosh held a grudging respect for the seasoned warrior. There is a conversation between the two that you can witness within Warsong Hold that I think is worth covering. It starts with Saurfang discussing their military tactics they need to do, but Garrosh loses his temper. Your father's blood runs strong in you, Hellscream, impatient as always, impatient and reckless. You rush headlong into all-out war without a thought of the consequences. Garrosh responds, "Do not speak to me of consequences, old one." Saurfang says, "I drank the same blood your father did, Garrosh. Manaroth's cursed venom pumped through my veins as well. I drove my weapons into the bodies and minds of my enemies. And while Grom died a glorious death freeing us all from the blood curse, he could not wipe away the terrible memory of our past. His act could not erase the horrors we committed. The winter after the curse was lifted, hundreds of veteran orcs like me were lost to despair. Our minds were finally free, yes. Free to relive all the unthinkable acts we had performed under the Legion's influence. I think it was the sounds of the Draenor children that unnerved most of them. You never forget. Have you ever been to Jagged Swine Farm? When the swine are of age for the slaughter, it's that sound. The sound of the swine being killed. It resonates the loudest. Those are hard times for us older veterans." Garrosh speaks up. "But surely you cannot think that those children were born into innocence. They would have grown up and taken arms against us." Saurfang shakes his head. "I am not speaking solely of the children of our enemies. I won't let you take us down that dark path again, young Hellscream. I'll kill you myself before that day comes." Garrosh asks, "How have you managed to survive for so long, Saurfang? Not fallen victim to your memories?" Saurfang turns around for a moment to answer, "I don't eat pork." Their dynamic was a constant push and pull between Garrosh's aggressive ambition and Saurfang's seasoned caution. Despite Saurfang's cautionary advice, Garrosh appointed commanders who mirrored his aggressive stance, directing the war effort primarily against the Alliance. Among these was Conqueror Krenna, the head of Conquest Hold in the Grizzly Hills, who prioritized combat with the Alliance over the battle against the Scourge. Her hot-blooded recklessness was so extreme that her own sister Gorgana had to depose her to restore balance. Similarly, the commander of Orgrim's Hammer above Icecrown was more focused on defeating the Alliance than contending with the Scourge. Even within the treacherous confines of Icecrown's citadel, the Horde clashed with the Alliance as the Skybreaker and Orgrim's Hammer engaged in fierce battles. Garrosh staunchly advocated for honorable combat. He detested the tactics employed at the Broken Front, viewing them as dishonorable. While he endorsed conflict with the Alliance whenever possible, he insisted that it be conducted in a way that fairly tested the martial prowess of the Horde. For Garrosh, using underhanded methods like poison and mind control is deemed cowardly, unworthy of the Horde's true strength. Thrall and Garrosh were urgently summoned to Dalaran to meet with Ronan, the city's leader. Arriving before King Varian Wren had departed, Garrosh and the Human King quickly clashed, sparring in the Violet Citadel. However, Ronan intervened with a magical shield, preventing any harm from coming to either combatant. Ronan proposed that the Horde and Alliance join forces to confront the looming threat of Yogg-Saron and Ulduar. Despite the severity of the situation, Garrosh and Varian were both staunchly opposed to cooperation. Varian was swiftly teleported away, and Garrosh, bristling with disdain, remarked that a true war chief would never ally with cowards. After the events in Dalaran, Garrosh and Thrall made their way back to Warsong Hold. During their journey, Garrosh reflected on the past, recalling when Thrall first brought him to Orgrimmar. Upon arrival at Warsong Hold, they were immediately thrust into defending it from a Scourge attack. Amidst the chaos, a report came in from Icecrown detailing how Horde forces had flanked the Alliance during their assault. Thrall watched intently as Garrosh addressed the situation, firmly telling the general from Icecrown that the Horde would fight with honor or not fight at all. Observing Garrosh's commitment to honorable combat, Thrall felt a surge of pride in the young leader's decision. Cairn Bloodhoof traveled to Warsong Hold to meet with Garrosh and Varrock. Impressed by the fortifications, he couldn't help but compare them to the architecture of previous wars. With the war in Northrend nearing its end, Garrosh was summoned back to Orgrimmar for a hero celebration, honoring the Horde's victories under his leadership. On their way to the ship, Garrosh and Cairn were ambushed by Cavaldir. Garrosh revealed hidden weapons, which they used to fend off the attackers. During their journey, they encountered an Alliance carrier wrecked at sea. Garrosh, declaring it was in Horde waters, eliminated most of the crew, despite Cairn's distressed pleas for mercy. Garrosh then provided the survivors with supplies and rations, telling them they had witnessed both the Horde's might and its mercy. While Garrosh and his crew were satisfied with the outcome, Cairn showed signs of concern. Back in Orgrimmar, Garrosh and the Northrend veterans received a warm welcome from Warchief Thrall. Encouraging all veterans to join the celebration, Garrosh was honored with a grand festivity. During the event, Thrall bestowed upon him Gorhau, the mighty axe of Grom Hellscream. Garrosh wielded the weapon with a natural affinity, just like his father before him. However, the land of Durotar was naturally harsh, and recently elemental disturbances has further weakened it. With unreliable supply routes and the Night Elves of Ashenvale refusing trade after the Wrathgate incident, Orgrimmar faced the brink of famine. Thrall, Cairn, and Hamul Runetotem sought to negotiate peacefully with the Night Elves, leveraging Hamul's high standing within the Cenarian Circle, which included both Tauren and Night Elves. Garrosh, however, was outraged at the notion of negotiation, viewing the Wrathgate as a tragedy for both factions. He argued that the Night Elves had no right to impede the Orcs' survival. He insisted that the Orcs should take what they needed by force. Cairn disagreed with him, leading to a heated exchange before Garrosh excused himself. Despite the celebration of the Northrend victory, the Horde faced a difficult road ahead, prompting Thrall to call a crucial meeting to address the looming challenges. Garrosh was summoned to Grommash Hold, where Thrall officially named him the acting war chief. Stunned, Garrosh immediately protested, insisting that his place was on the battlefield. He knew much of war and tactics, but little of politics. Thrall reassured him that he would not be alone in this endeavor and that Cairn, Eitrig, and Vol'jin would be there to advise him. With this support, Garrosh accepted the role. As the highest authority within the Horde, Garrosh set to work repairing the damage caused by the elemental upheaval, starting with the remodeling of Orgrimmar. What had once been a village of huts was transformed into a formidable bastion, reinforced with the metals used in Warsong Hold. Garrosh believed this would prevent future fires from spreading, and for a moment, he and Cairn found common ground. However, events beyond Garrosh's control soon unfolded. A peaceful meeting between the Tauren and the Night Elves was sabotaged by agents of the Twilight's Hammer clan, who posed as Horde members and brutally murdered the entire gathering, leaving Hamul as the sole survivor. Hamul, noting the aggressor's attitude was reminiscent of Garrosh's, informed Cairn of the tragedy. This incident set off a chain of events that would further test Garrosh's leadership and the unity of the Horde. As Garrosh finished being ritually tattooed, bearing the same distinctive jaw tattoo his father had received, Cairn stormed in, furious over the recent events. He accused Garrosh of orchestrating the unprovoked attack on the Druids. Garrosh, however, vehemently denied it, stating that he had not been responsible. He would have announced it to the world. Their fierce exchange escalated, breaking down their alliance. Cairn concluded that Garrosh was unfit to lead the glorious Horde and must be dethroned for its sake. Cairn challenged Garrosh to a mock Garrosh for the title of Warchief, and Garrosh raised the stakes, making it a battle to the death to deter Cairn. However, Cairn accepted without hesitation, informing Garrosh of the traditional rules, including the dress code and the shaman's blessing on their chosen weapons. In an earlier encounter, Magatha Grimtotem had offered her assistance, and now she offered to bless Gorhau for Garrosh. The duel began in the Orgrimmar arena, with Garrosh and Cairn initially matching each other blow for blow. As Cairn started to land serious hits, Garrosh found himself backed into a corner. In a desperate move, he struck Cairn's chest, shattering his weapon, the Rune Spear. The blow seemed serious but not fatal, until Cairn inexplicably collapsed. Surprised but quick to seize the opportunity, Garrosh delivered the final fatal blow to Cairn. Unbeknownst to Garrosh, Magatha had poisoned his weapon, ensuring Cairn's demise. Though Garrosh had won, the victory was tainted, and the fallout from this duel would ripple through the Horde for years to come. Unbeknownst to Garrosh, Magatha had used him as a pawn in her treacherous scheme against Cairn. She had laced Gorhal with poison, ensuring that even the slightest wound would be fatal to the High Chieftain. Elated by her success, Magatha began the next phase of her plan, the hostile takeover of Thunderbluff, and the assassination of Cair's son and successor, Bane Bloodhoof. Garrosh was left grappling with a maelstrom of emotions. Though confused by Cairn's accusations, he took some solace in believing their duel had been fair. However, this illusion was shattered when Eitrig pointed out traces of poison on Gorhal. Realizing the truth, Garrosh was both enraged and distraught. He had unwittingly denied Cairn a fair fight, and Magatha had stolen his honor. Consumed by fury, Garrosh vowed to confront the treacherous Grim Totem matriarch and reclaim his tarnished honor. Magatha, having seized control of Thunderbluff, sought assistance from the new war chief. In response, Garrosh sent a scathing letter, wishing her a violent demise and ensuring no aid would come from him. He declared that her fate was now in the hands of the Earth Mother. Believing she had found an ally in Garrosh, Magatha was infuriated by his cold response. Left without support, Magatha and her loyal Grim Totem were eventually defeated by Bane Bloodhoof and his followers. Later, Garrosh and Bane met in Thousand Needles. Garrosh, expecting a challenge similar to the one Cairn had issued, was taken back when Bane refused. Instead, Bane exposed Magatha as the true traitor and offered Garrosh the loyalty of the Tauren people. Impressed by Bane's integrity and leadership, Garrosh gladly accepted his offer, forging a new alliance. While Garrosh and Bane had managed to put their lingering animosity behind them for the good of the Horde, new conflicts emerged on the onset of the Cataclysm. The industrious goblins, exploiting Azshara for the Horde's military needs, inadvertently tainted Orgrimmar's water supply, rendering it undrinkable. Frustrated, Garrosh traveled to Thunderbluff to discuss the issue with Bane and Archdruid Hamul Rune Totem, seeking shipments of water from Mulgore to rectify the problem. Although Bane and Hamul were initially reluctant to agree to Garrosh's demands, a tense exchange ensued. Ultimately, Bane agreed, acknowledging the necessity. Garrosh emphasized his duty as war chief to ensure the safety and well-being of the Horde's people before departing. The water shipments from Mulgore alleviated the immediate crisis, providing the people of Durotar with fresh water. However, Garrosh's demanding attitude alienated many Tauren, with some even contemplating leaving the Horde due to their chieftain's apparent passivity and Garrosh's increasing impositions. During this time, Bane learned of Quilboar raiding parties attacking the water supplies and killing Tauren. Upon discovering this, Garrosh returned to Thunderbluff to confront Bane. Despite Bane's insistence on finding a peaceful resolution, Garrosh was outraged. He argued that the Quilboar were attacking Horde lands and killing Horde citizens, and such actions could not be tolerated. Garrosh assured Bane that decisive measures would be taken to eliminate the Quilboar threat once and for all, reinforcing his commitment to protecting the Horde. Garrosh, accompanied by a small regiment of 15 Kor'kron, stormed the Quilboar tunnels, cutting down waves of the beast with ruthless efficiency. As victory seemed within reach, the Quilboar launched a massive ambush, overwhelming the Kor'kron with sheer numbers. Backed into a corner, Garrosh managed to fell many more Quilboar but eventually lost hold of Gorhal, his situation growing increasingly dire. Just as the tide turned against him, Bane, Hamul, and several Sunwalkers arrived to relieve the beleaguered regiment. Bane helped Garrosh retrieve Gorhal from the tunnel wall, and together they fought off the Quilboar, managing to escape and reach the surface safely. While Garrosh fumed in silent fury, Bane explained that the Quilboar had also been suffering from a lack of water. In response, Hamul created a river for the Quilboar, negotiating a truce to prevent further attacks on the Tauren. The Quilboar retreated, and the Horde forces emerged triumphant. Bane assured Garrosh that the Tauren would seek his aid if necessary, and then led his people back to Thunderbluff. Humiliated and enraged by his own misjudgment, which had cost the lives of 15 elite soldiers and resulted in a tactical embarrassment, Garrosh returned to Orgrimmar via Zeppelin without uttering a word. Despite the incident, Bane later reaffirmed his loyalty to the Horde, honoring the legacy his father helped shape. Shortly after the Cataclysm, Garrosh personally led his troops into the neighboring borders of Ashenvale. While the Warsong clan had made considerable progress under War Chief Thrall, it fell far short of the grand ambitions Garrosh Hellscream harbored. He envisioned creating a massive city in the heart of the forest, rivaling Orgrimmar in size and power. With rich minerals ripe for the taking and all the necessary resources to foster his people's growth, Garrosh launched a ferocious assault through the Caldari ranks, carving a path of destruction straight to the Silverwing outpost. Garrosh's forces included tamed proto-drakes and magnetar captives from Northrend, domesticated by holding their young hostage. His plan was to see his dream of expansion realized at any cost. The attack on the outpost resulted in a decisive victory for the Horde. As he surveyed the fallen forest, once a formidable resistance against his father, Garrosh, Garrosh wondered what the mighty Grom would have thought of this triumph. Confident in his prowess, he concluded that even Thrall could not deny his achievements and would hail him as the champion of the Orcish race and the entire Horde. Garrosh's plan was twofold. He had learned of a meeting between the Alliance leaders and aimed to lure out Tyrande Whisperwind by striking at this precise moment. As expected, the priestess arrived to aid the struggling sentinels, but the Horde unleashed their mighty magnetar upon the Alliance ranks. Amidst the chaos, Tyrande was struck down and wounded by Orc archers. Confident in their impending victory, Garrosh joined the fray. The battle was dramatically interrupted by the arrival of Worgen reinforcements led by Varian Wrynn and Genn Greymane, who swiftly fought back several magnetar. Garrosh and Varian clashed repeatedly, their duels fierce and intense, each matching the other's attacks blow for blow, slaying any who dared interfere. Initially evenly matched, Varian began to gain the upper hand, fighting with unwavering focus and relentless vigor. Varian showed no signs of tiring, while Garrosh's stamina waned. This allowed Varian to press his advantage, eventually wounding Garrosh and disarming him of Gorehowl. A dying magnetar crashed between them, forcing a brief separation. Garrosh, seething and composed, prepared to charge at Varian once more. However, several Kor'kron held him back, urging him to retreat. Reluctantly, Garrosh complied, vowing to kill Varian himself. The encounter left a bitter taste, but Garrosh's resolve only hardened with the promise of future retribution. Following the Cataclysm, Garrosh adopted an increasingly aggressive stance in his war with the Alliance, leading his forces in a ruthless rampage through Ashenvale. He sought to secure the much-needed supplies to sustain his people. His actions effectively staved off the famine that had threatened Durotar before his rise to power. Garrosh firmly believed that if the blood of the selfish Alliance was the price of his people's survival, it was a necessary sacrifice. Hellscream's ascension was widely applauded by most orcs, who saw his brash warrior instincts and refusal to negotiate for resources as embodying the true Orcish way. Under his leadership, the Horde's aggressive tactics were seen as a return to their roots, prioritizing strength and survival above all else. Garrosh, believing that only orcs had the strength to truly defend Orgrimmar, evicted the majority of non-orc races from the city's center. Shortly after the Shattering, he formed a new army called Garrotkra to address the Horde's centaur incursion problems. Garrosh paid little heed to opinions outside his own race and were not inclined towards diplomacy, either with the Alliance or within the Horde itself. Already distrustful of the other Horde factions, Garrosh quickly realized that their leaders were more powerful than he had initially estimated. This realization led to a significant conflict with Vol'jin, the Darkspear chieftain. Their relationship deteriorated, much like Garrosh's with Cairn, culminating in Vol'jin threatening to kill Garrosh due to his relentless thirst for war. The fallout between them led to the mass exodus of the Darkspear trolls from Orgrimmar, led by a disillusioned Vol'jin. This rift spread the Horde's military thin, weakening their once concentrated might. Following the defeat of Trade Prince Gallywix, Thrall sent goblin agents to Garrosh, inviting them to join the Horde. When Garrosh was shown an SI-7 emblem, he immediately recognized its significance. Understanding the underlying message it conveyed, these events set the stage for the ongoing tension and power struggles within the Horde, as Garrosh's aggressive politics and actions continue to shape their fate. Just a side note here, SI-7 is the secretive military force of Stormwind. Garrosh's tenuous tolerance for the Forsaken was pushed to its limits after he ordered them to invade Gilneas, seeking a strategic port in the Eastern Kingdoms for the Horde. Although Gilneas was initially conquered, the Gilneas mounted a successful counterattack, forcing the Forsaken out of the city. Frustrated by the setback, Garrosh deployed his own forces to support the Forsaken, resulting in a stalemate. Later, Garrosh met with Lady Sylvanas Windrunner in Silverpine Forest and witnessed her demonstration of the Valkyr's powerful necromantic abilities. While this solution appeased the Forsaken, Garrosh was disgusted. He assigned High Overlord Kromosh to quote-unquote guard Lady Sylvanas, and after a sharp, insulting exchange, he left. Garrosh explicitly banned the use of the Forsaken Blight, allowing only weaker versions to be used. Despite this decree, most of the Forsaken ignored the ban, and the more potent strains were deployed multiple times. In response, Garrosh sent General Warhowl to remind Sylvanas of the prohibition, emphasizing his disapproval and asserting his authority. During the events in Ashenvale, a demon named Durok attempted to lure the orcs back into their reliance on fell power. Outraged by this transgression, Garrosh demanded Durok's head. Additionally, Garrosh recruited the Shatterspear tribe into the Horde to launch an attack on the Night Elves from Darkshore. In the Stone Talon Mountains, following Overlord Kromgar's brutal campaign, Kromgar's corrupt general orchestrated the murder of several neutral druids studying in Thaldara Grove. Using a massive bomb, Kromgar obliterated the grove. Enraged by this atrocity, Garrosh confronted Kromgar, quoting a lesson from a wise old war hero. Garrosh seized Kromgar by the neck and hurled him off the ledge of Cliffwater Post, sending him to his death. Humbled by High Chieftain Cliffwalker's teachings on mercy, Garrosh expressed his gratitude for the valuable lesson. To address the aftermaths of these events, Garrosh dispatched Warlord Bloodhilt to salvage the situation in the Southern Barrens, demonstrating his commitment to correcting the course of the Horde's actions. Garrosh personally spearheaded the assault on the Twilight Highlands, orchestrating an impressive air fleet to obliterate the Twilight's Hammer Cult and claim the land for the Horde. After delivering an inspiring speech, he was informed of an Alliance fleet hidden below, and immediately ordered his air support to destroy them. However, this plan backfired due to treachery from within. The Horde fleet was ambushed by Deathwing and his Twilight Drakes, leaving them undefended. Garrosh managed to fend off one of the Drakes personally, but his ship sustained massive damage and plummeted into the ocean. The rest of the fleet met a similar fate, crashing into the sea. Garrosh himself was declared missing in action, leaving the Horde in a state of uncertainty and turmoil. In Garrosh's absence, the Horde turned to the neighboring Dragonmaw clan to forge an alliance. After unsuccessful negotiations with their leader, Overlord Morgahar, the Horde forces joined a Dragonmaw rebellion led by Warlord Zayla. Together, they successfully overthrew Morgahar and his fellow orcs. Garrosh, having survived the crash, arrived at Dragonmaw Port and officially welcomed Zayla and the Dragonmaw into the Horde. With the assault on the Twilight Highlands progressing well, Garrosh turned his attention inward and discovered that the earlier ambush had been orchestrated by Sauronach the Mystic, a traitor who had aligned himself with the Twilight's Hammer. With the player's assistance, Garrosh swiftly dealt with Sauronach, eliminating the threat and securing the loyalty of his forces. Garrosh granted amnesty to any members of the Blackrock clan willing to swear allegiance to him. Among these, a former warrior named Malkaruk became Garrosh's personal bodyguard. Malkaruk silenced dissent through intimidation, abduction, and outright murder, actions that received Garrosh's approval. Garrosh also successfully blockaded Kalimdor, securing a strategic advantage at sea for the Horde. Most notably, his enhanced military strength allowed him to keep a tight leash on critical allies like the Darkspear and the Tauren, whose people and lands were more at risk should Bane or Vol'jin oppose him. This essentially held the Western Horde hostage to ensure their compliance. With the Cataclysm over and the threat of Deathwing subsided, Garrosh reinvigorated his plans for conquest. He aimed to forcefully expel the Alliance from Kalimdor and claim the continent for the Horde. In a meeting with other Horde leaders, Bane Bloodhoof, Vol'jin, Sylvanas Windrunner, Lorthamar Theron, and Trade Prince Gallywix, along with Malkaruk and Eitrig, the only advisor remaining from Thrall's reign, Garrosh expressed a desire to purge Theramore from the continent and diminish the Alliance's military presence. His ultimate goal was to seize the Night Elves' land, much to the chagrin of Bane, Vol'jin, and Sylvanas. This ambitious plan marked the beginning of a new, aggressive chapter for the Horde under Garrosh's rule. Sylvanas objected to Garrosh's plan, arguing that the Alliance would retaliate against the Forsaken and Cinderai in vengeance for Theramore. Garrosh dismissed her concerns, assuring her that any Alliance retaliation would be swiftly dealt with. Among his fellow leaders, only Northrend chose not to question Garrosh's goals or motives, while Gallywix's interests extended only as far as profit. Garrosh, noting Northremar's lack of sympathy towards Sylvanas, developed a grudging respect for him. Nonetheless, he ordered all the leaders to be watched, focusing particularly on Theron, after a pointed discussion about loyalty. Garrosh craved acknowledgement, believing that his conquest of Theramore would earn him the respect of Bane and Vol'jin, who he planned to reward for their eventual support. His ambitions for the Isle extended beyond common knowledge. His agents had discovered the focusing iris, and Garrosh ordered the blue dragon protecting it to be slain and the iris delivered to him. Additionally, he commanded the creation of another mana bomb, the formidable Blood Elf invention originally created by the Sun Fury in Outland. This weapon would serve as a critical component in his plans for domination. The war chief spearheaded the assault on Northwatch, using it as a strategic stepping stone to Theramore and an opportunity for the gathered Horde warriors to revel in a glorious battle. Accompanied by Malkaruk, Vol'jin, Bane, and Gallywix, Garrosh noted the Trade Prince's eagerness but was irritated by the absence of Sylvanas and Northrend. Representing Sylvanas, Captain Frandris Farley and a regiment of Forsaken arrived, while Kellantur Bloodblade and 2 ships of Blood Elven warriors were sent by Lorthamar Theron and Haldoran Brightwing. With each race of the Horde represented, Garrosh swiftly conquered Northwatch and marched onward to Theramore. Despite their military success, Garrosh's allies grew increasingly concerned about the direction the Horde was taking. While Garrosh secluded himself to reflect on the impending victory, Bane convened a small council to address the unspoken worries within the more moderate ranks of the Horde. Informed of the meeting, Garrosh stormed in, angrily lashing out at his allies for questioning him. He assured Bane and Hamul that he was not Thrall, whom he dismissed as weak, pacifist, blaming his predecessor for the Horde's problems. When Kellantur attempted to interject, Garrosh struck her but quickly composed himself, warning that they were fortunate their war chief was willing to overlook their deceit. Later, Bane and Vol'jin urged Garrosh to move the army, but they were stunned when Garrosh ordered the Horde ships to pull back. Garrosh dispatched Malkaruk to the front lines, where he led the Horde forces in skirmishes around Theramore Island. Meanwhile, Garrosh's spy, a Sunreaver mage named Thaylen Songweaver, who had pretended to be neutral, betrayed Theramore's defenders and aided the Horde in breaching the city's defenses. After being captured, Thaylen was rescued by Horde soldiers, revealing the full extent of Garrosh's plan. Garrosh then commanded a full retreat, drawing the Alliance forces into the center of Theramore. At this crucial moment, a mana bomb, enhanced by the stolen focusing iris, was dropped directly over the city. The entire isle was obliterated, with such devastating force that not even an insect survived. The casualties were immense, wiping out many of the Alliance's top generals, including Ronan. Jaina Proudmoore narrowly escaped the catastrophe, but the loss was staggering, and the brutal efficiency of Garrosh's strategy was laid bare. Having achieved a total victory, Garrosh was elated. He boasted about the foolishness of his enemies, proclaiming how he had stolen the iris right under the noses of the Kirin Tor and left nothing of Theramore to oppose his conquest. While many of his soldiers shared in the triumph, others were repulsed by the destruction. Bane, horrified by the carnage, fled into the swamp, while Malkaruk laughed in his face. Bane couldn't help but reflect on the bitter irony that Garrosh had committed a far worse atrocity than the one for which he had executed Overlord Cromgar. This victory, however, came with severe consequences. Jaina Proudmoore, having survived the attack, was deeply scarred by the traumatic experience and twisted by the residual energies of the mana bomb, swearing to destroy Garrosh. She embarked on a quest for vengeance that led her to Orgrimmar itself. Though she initially intended to annihilate its population in retribution, she ultimately stayed her hand. Instead, she directed her fury toward Garrosh's fleet, engaging it alongside Varian Wren's forces in a fierce battle. Garrosh faced Varian once more, marking their third duel. This time, Garrosh held his ground far better than he had in their previous clash in Ashenvale, though the battle was again cut short. The Alliance retreated from Durotar, seizing Northwatch in the process. With Orgrimmar narrowly avoiding catastrophe and Northwatch retaken, Garrosh ordered his coastal blockade of Kalimdor to fall back. Bane saw this as a sign of Garrosh abandoning his conquest and felt a glimmer of hope. However, his relief turned to horror when Garrosh revealed his true intentions. Instead of merely expelling the Alliance from Kalimdor, he now aimed to wage a war of total genocide. Bane warned Garrosh that he would withdraw his support if another atrocity like Theramore occurred. Garrosh responded with a smug smile, dismissively noting that the information was duly noted. The chilling exchange left Bane deeply troubled about the future of the Horde under Garrosh's ruthless leadership. Garrosh's brutal reign has had lasting effects on both his allies and enemies. Vol'jin, the most geographically vulnerable to Garrosh's wrath, had privately given up all hope for reconciliation and retreated to the Echo Isles to plan his next move. Bane, horrified by Garrosh's genocidal ambitions, has similarly withdrawn to Mulgore. Meanwhile, Jaina Proudmoore, now the leader of the Kirin Tor after Garrosh's actions indirectly led to Ronin's death, is in a far better state of mind, but remains resolute with her determination to see Garrosh removed from power. Varian Wrynn, aware of the growing discontent within Garrosh's ranks, devised a plan to support these Horde rebels in eventually overthrowing Garrosh. Garrosh made a chilling proclamation. Every man, woman, and child was to contribute to the war effort against the Alliance, and any found shirking their duties would face the brutal consequences issued out by the Kor'kron. This decree further solidified his ruthless grip on power, spreading fear and oppression throughout the Horde. The destruction of Theramore had an unexpected outcome. Rather than being crushed, the Alliance was galvanized to intensify their war efforts. While being briefed on the various naval battles by the newly promoted General Nazgrim, Garrosh was shocked to learn that during a skirmish in the south, Alliance forces had run aground on an uncharted island. Infuriated that the Alliance had discovered this new territory first, Garrosh immediately ordered Nazgrim to assemble his best warriors to secure the land for the Horde. Sometime later, Garrosh welcomed a group of Pandaren who had sworn allegiance to the Horde, led by G. Firepaw. He laid out his expectations and tested their martial prowess by unleashing captured beasts on them in the Ring of Valor. This trial was a harsh introduction to Garrosh's brutal leadership and his relentless drive for supremacy. Roughly 2 months after the initial entrance into Pandaria, Garrosh invaded with the bulk of the Horde fleet, swiftly eliminating the local Alliance presence along the shores of Krasarang. At the newly constructed Domination Point, Garrosh and Vol'jin clashed once again over Garrosh's relentless warmongering. This time, fed up with the Darkspear chieftain's constant criticism, Garrosh ordered Vol'jin's assassination, disguising it as a mission with the Kor'kron. Vol'jin survived the attempt on his life and soon discovered that Garrosh had placed the Darkspear Isles under martial law. In response, members of the Horde, disillusioned with Garrosh's tyrannical rule, joined forces with former war chief Thrall to liberate the Isles and confront Garrosh's forces. Thrall himself assumed leadership of the Isles in Vol'jin's absence, acting as a deterrent against further aggression. Horde heroes were instructed to report Vol'jin's death to Garrosh, remaining close to the war chief while covertly gathering like-minded members of the Horde. Their goal was to build a coalition strong enough to resist and eventually overthrow Garrosh before his destructive rule could irreparably harm their faction. Garrosh then journeyed to the Shrine of Two Moons, accompanied by Malkaruk, Ishi, and the Regent Lord of Quel'Thalas, Lor'themar Therin. While there, he listened intently as Malkaruk informed him about the Mogu race, fascinated by the iron-fisted rule of the Mogu and their advanced technology. Garrosh remarked to Malkaruk there was much to learn from them. He was particularly intrigued by their ability to create new warriors and manipulate emotions to heighten battle prowess. Garrosh had dispatched an expedition led by Fanlir Silverthorn to Ancestral Rise and eagerly awaited results. He was pleased when Fanlir revealed information about the Divine Bell, a powerful artifact. Later, Garrosh traveled to Fire Camp Batar, which he had converted into a Horde camp. There, he investigated further mentions of the Divine Bell with Delia Sunseeker. During this time, Agent Connolly and an Alliance adventurer spied on him, also learning about the bell. Garrosh's interest in the Divine Bell hinted at his relentless pursuit of power and dominance, setting the stage for future conflicts. Later, Lor'themar Therin and his battalion were sent out to Mogu'jah, where they were overpowered by the Mogu. This led to a clash between Garrosh and Therin, as Garrosh had failed to mention the strong Mogu presence, resulting in several Blood Elven casualties. Despite the tension, Garrosh observed Therin and his elves at the Mogu ruins in Kun Lai, where the Blood Elves planned to capture Mogu leader, Shan Qian. Therin dispatched a Horde hero along with a Farstrider and a Blood Knight to defeat the Mogu warlord. During the battle, Garrosh arrived and hurled Gorehowl at Shan Qian, nearly killing him. Demanding information about the Divine Bell, Garrosh was met with mocking defiance from Shan Qian. As Garrosh prepared to deliver the final blow, Fanlir intervened, insisting that the Mogu was their only key to the Divine Bell, and the Blood Elves would make him talk. Garrosh reluctantly agreed, but not before warning Fanlir that any further disrespect would result in his head being placed atop a pike in Orgrimmar. This tense exchange underscored Garrosh's ruthless pursuit of power and the fragile alliances within the Horde. Shan Qian was captured and brought to Garroshar Advance. Meanwhile, at the Shrine of Two Moons, Bane Bloodhoof arrived in Pandaria and worked to undo the chaos Garrosh had left in his wake, such as curing Shah-corrupted warriors. Garrosh, eager to harness the Shah's power, discussed its potential with Lor'themar and Bane, insisting that the Horde could control it. Skeptical of Garrosh's ambition, Lor'themar Therin departed for Silvermoon with a Shah artifact to examine it further. Garrosh then dispatched a Horde adventurer to Silvermoon to gather information. Much like Vol'jin before him, Lor'themar grew increasingly wary of Garrosh's rule. Multiple instances of Garrosh disregarding his people's welfare, including a disastrous demand that led to a Shah being released in Silvermoon, made Lor'themar consider withdrawing Quel'Thalas from the Horde and re-evaluating old alliances. Garrosh and Bane traveled to Garroshar Advance, where Garrosh interrogated Shan Qian to uncover the location of the Divine Bell. Bane suggested a more peaceful method, which ultimately proved successful. Shan Qian revealed the bell's location in a tomb. Unbeknownst to the Horde, the Alliance was spying on the interaction and also learned the location. Garrosh sent Ishi to retrieve the bell, only to discover that the Kaldorei had reached the tomb first and taken the bell to Darnassus. Determined to reclaim it, Garrosh dispatched Fanlir and several Horde champions to Darnassus, successfully recovering the bell. Jaina Proudmoore discovered the Sunreaver's involvement in the theft and purged them from Dalaran. Many fleeing Blood Elves, including Aethys Sunreaver, were rescued by Grand Magister Romoth. In the aftermath, the Sunreavers blamed Garrosh as much as Jaina for their expulsion. This incident thwarted Lor'themar's consideration of rejoining the Alliance. By orchestrating the heist in Darnassus and focusing the blame on the Blood Elves, Garrosh effectively sabotaged any notion of the Cinderai leaving the Horde. Later, Garrosh gathered Horde forces at Emperor's Reach, bringing the Divine Bell with him. He delivered a speech about the Horde's grand destiny, declaring his intention to use the Divine Bell to eliminate weakness from his orcs and create a stronger Horde. When Garrosh rang the Divine Bell, it transformed his Kor'kron into Shah-infested warriors. After the adventurer dispatched them, Prince Anduin arrived, attempting to dissuade Garrosh from using the bell. Ignoring Anduin's pleas, Garrosh used the bell to infuse his champion Ishi with Shah energy, forcing the adventurer to fight him. Despite Garrosh's encouragement, none of his champions were able to master the Shah energy. In the aftermath, Anduin used the Harmonic Mallet to transform the bell's chaotic energy into pure harmony. This temporarily stunned Garrosh, but he quickly retaliated by striking the bell, causing it to shatter and collapse onto Anduin. The impact shattered Anduin's bones, and believing the prince to be dead, Garrosh allowed the Alliance champion to live to relay the grim news to King Varian, illustrating the dire consequences of continued defiance. Garrosh then flew off, maniacally laughing at the thought of the Alliance's suffering, especially that of King Varian. Though the Divine Bell was destroyed, Garrosh remained determined to master the Shah energy, intent on using its power to further his ruthless vision for the Horde. As is evident by different leaders attempting to turn on Garrosh, not everyone approved of his ways of leading. The Horde is his army, but we are not his people. Garrosh demands loyalty, but to him that just means dying at his command. He doesn't know what loyalty is. Thrall inspired loyalty. What Garrosh wants is obedience. Garrosh was deeply engrossed in his machinations at Domination Point, paying little attention to the unfolding events on the Isle of Thunder. Seizing the opportunity, Lor'themar Theron led a coalition predominantly composed of Sunreavers against the resurrected Thunder King. His goal was to claim the Thunder King's formidable weaponry, using it as leverage against Garrosh in the event of an uprising. This strategic move showcased Theron's foresight and determination to challenge Garrosh's tyrannical rule, setting the stage for potential rebellion within the Horde. This strategic move showcased Lor'themar's foresight and determination to challenge Garrosh's tyrannical rule, setting the stage for potential rebellion within the Horde. Fed up with Garrosh's relentless warmongering, significant portions of the Horde rose up against him. In response, Garrosh branded the entire Darkspear tribe as traitors, forcibly seizing their holdings and brutally oppressing and executing their members. This exacerbated the already fragile racial divisions within Orgrimmar. The Valley of Spirits fell under Kor'kron control, and non-Orc residents, particularly Tauren, were rounded up and persecuted. These events disrupted Lor'themar and Vol'jin's collaborative plan to overthrow Garrosh. With his people in immediate danger and Lor'themar still occupied on the Isle of Thunder, Vol'jin was compelled to declare an open rebellion and return to Durotar. Known as the Darkspear Rebellion, this initial uprising saw the rebels reclaim the Echo Isles and advance as far as Razor Hill. Thrall, Bane Bloodhoof, and Chen Stormstout also lent their support to the rebellion, fighting their way ever closer to Orgrimmar. Their united front marked a pivotal moment in the struggle against Garrosh's tyrannical rule, setting the stage for an epic confrontation in the heart of the Horde's capital. Simultaneously, Garrosh faced the looming threat of an Alliance invasion. SI-7 agents were dispatched to gather intelligence on Garrosh's movements and facilitate the arrival of the Alliance's main force. They also learned about the burgeoning rebellion within the Horde, and in an effort to further destabilize Garrosh's regime, the Alliance lent their support to the rebels. Undeterred by his mounting adversaries, Garrosh pursued his ambition to wield Pandarian artifacts. He sent a goblin excavation team to unearth dark powers buried beneath the Veil of Eternal Blossoms, which were then shipped back to Orgrimmar and stored in Ragefire Chasm. Horde agents speculated that Garrosh was preparing for yet another invasion, though his intended target remained unclear. To quell the rebellion, Garrosh called upon Warlord Zayla and General Nazgrim, enlisting their aid to crush the dissenters. He also conscripted mercenaries to bolster his Kor'kron forces. Despite the combined threats of internal rebellion and external invasion, Garrosh remained resolute in his quest for power, setting the stage for an epic confrontation that would determine the fate of the Horde. After the Goblin excavation team in the Veil of Eternal Blossoms unearthed the sealed heart of the deceased old god Y'Sharj, Garrosh traveled to inspect his formidable prize. Realizing the heart was dormant, he fought his way through the Shadowpan to submerge the heart in the Veil's sacred pools. Terran Zu, the Shadowpan's leader, confronted Garrosh in a desperate attempt to halt his rampage across the continent. However, Garrosh overpowered him, choking him with dismantled rails and impaling him upon Gorehowl. As Terran Zu lay defeated, Garrosh declared that the other races of the world would undoubtedly try to stop him, and he welcomed the challenge. He confidently proclaimed that no matter what the world threw at him, his newly unearthed power would prevail, and his enemies would find themselves impaled upon Orgrimmar's spires. Garrosh hurled the dormant heart into the pools, triggering a chaotic surge of Sha energy that corrupted the surrounding area. He then retreated to his underground fortress, abandoning even his father's weapon in favor of a new, old god-forged weapon, Xal'atath. After moving the heart to Orgrimmar, Garrosh's behavior grew increasingly erratic and xenophobic. Despite his descent into madness, he remained uncorrupted by the old gods, driven solely by his own twisted ambitions. Garrosh relocated the heart of Y'Sharj to his personal sanctum within the Underhold, a vast underground complex deep within Ragefire Chasm beneath Orgrimmar. With the entire city under martial law, Garrosh issued commands from within the fortified compound, plotting to conquer the world for his true horde using his newfound powers. He also allowed the Paragons of the Calaxy into his compound to act as guardians of the heart and gifted some of its power to his loyal enforcer, Malkaruk. In response to Garrosh's growing threat, the Alliance and the Darkspear Rebellion formed a coalition to stop the tyrannical dictator. They were joined by adventurers who had just finished containing the destruction Garrosh had wrought upon the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. Together, they laid siege to Orgrimmar, successfully fighting their way into the Underhold, overcoming numerous traps and lieutenants. The coalition finally reached Garrosh's inner sanctum, where they found Thrall confronting Garrosh and pleading with him to end his genocidal campaign. Garrosh refused to cooperate, calling Thrall weak and sadistically stating he would take pleasure in destroying everything the Horde and the Alliance had built. He even physically tortured his former mentor, as his Dark Shaman had tortured the Elementals, causing them to lash out at Thrall when he attempted to call upon them. Despite this, Thrall overcame the attack and faced Garrosh in melee combat, only to be swiftly defeated. Turning his attention to the adventurers, Garrosh engaged them in battle. Supported by the true Horde, the Iron Stars, and the power of Y'Shaarj itself, the conflict raged not only in the Underhold, but also in Y'Shaarj's twisted pocket dimension, a nightmarish realm resembling sites of immense Shaw outbreaks in Pandaria. The adventurers held their ground, and in a final desperate move, Garrosh absorbed all of the heart's remaining power, becoming an avatar of the old god. Despite his newfound might, it wasn't enough. The malevolent warchief ultimately collapsed from his wounds, the power of Y'Shaarj dissipating from his exhausted body. As Garrosh lay defeated, the leaders of the Alliance, Horde, and the Pandaren arrived to take him into custody and decide his fate, bringing an end to his tyrannical reign.
You disappoint me, Garrosh. You are not worthy of your father's legacy.
His punishment is not for you alone to decide.
I won't let you take him.
We have all suffered from his atrocities. My people, more than any other. Let him stand trial in Pandaria. There, we will mete out justice for all.
Look at them. Already they plot against us. Seize this moment, Varian. Dismantle the Horde.
Guardsmen!
Father, what are you doing? What a king must do.
I will speak to your war chief.
I speak for the Horde. Very well. The Horde has committed heinous crimes, Vol'jin. But some among you fought against Garrosh's tyranny. For that, I am willing to end this bloodshed. But know this. If your Horde fails to uphold honor as Garrosh did, we will end you.
In one of the most devastating possible outcomes, depicted by the Vision of Time, Garrosh lays waste to Stormwind City, leaving the entire harbor in ruins and corrupted by Y'Shaarj's dark power. He gruesomely impales the corpses of all rebel Horde leaders, along with the Wrynn family, Jaina Proudmoore, Tyrande Whisperwind, and Terran Zu. These macabre trophies adorn a ruined stairway leading into the city, serving as a dire warning to anyone who might oppose his new order. This chilling vision is encountered during the heroic mode fight against Garrosh. Another vision shows a defeated Garrosh lying on the ground surrounded by all the leaders of the Horde and Alliance. The final vision reveals Garrosh imprisoned in the Temple of the White Tiger, where Anduin Wrynn visits him, possibly referencing a scene from the War Crimes novel. In the aftermath of Garrosh's fall, the Warsong clan was left shattered, reeling from the consequences of what their leader had become. The once proud clan struggled to come to terms with the legacy of destruction and betrayal left in Garrosh's wake. After his defeat, Garrosh was transferred to the Temple of the White Tiger to stand trial. Caged below the temple, he dreamt of his father and his homeland Draenor, wondering if his father would be proud of him. When all parties had arrived, Garrosh was brought before Terranzu, the jury, and numerous witnesses. He listened to the charges against him, but instead of showing remorse, Garrosh clapped and mocked the trial, comparing it to the Darkmoon Fair and causing a great commotion. Once order was restored, Bane Bloodhoof was appointed as his defender from the Horde. Despite Bane's efforts, Garrosh did little to aid his own case. Bane urged him to open up to someone, suggesting that his silence was akin to a death wish. Reluctantly, Garrosh decided he would only speak to Anduin Wrynn. Initially cautious, Anduin accepted the role, opening a dialogue with the disgraced warchief. Garrosh and Anduin had many conversations, discussing a wide range of topics. Anduin consistently urged Garrosh to repent and admit wrongdoings, but Garrosh would always deflect, challenging Anduin's beliefs and making him question what he held dear. On the eve of the trial's verdict, Garrosh became increasingly agitated, doing everything he could to provoke Anduin. His taunts eventually succeeded, nearly driving Anduin to attack him. Instead, Anduin angrily slapped the food from Garrosh's hands. Garrosh seized Anduin's arm and twisted it, but Anduin calmly informed him that the food was poisoned and he had saved his life. Garrosh, surprised, released his grip. Before leaving, Anduin asked the guards to remove the shackles from Garrosh's legs so he could walk like a true warrior once more. When the time came for the verdict, Garrosh was given a chance to speak. He acknowledged the strong arguments presented by Tyrande Whisperwind and Bane Bloodhoof. He even addressed Anduin, expressing a belief in the possibility of change. Just as it seemed Garrosh might admit his regrets, he stunned the room by declaring he regretted nothing and would do it all over again. At that moment, Karaz Dormu, who had been secretly working with the Vision of Time, activated a portal that allowed him and Garrosh to escape to an alternate Draenor, set 35 years in the past. Garrosh and Karaz eventually made their way to Nagrand, the homeland of the Warsong clan. Their plan was to locate the alternate version of Garrosh's father, Grom Hellscream, and rally the Orc clans into forming a different kind of horde. However, Karaz had grander ambitions. He intended to use the shards of the Vision of Time to traverse multiple worlds, gathering other hordes to send back to Azeroth, thereby gaining infinite power. Garrosh, upon learning that one of the shards could take him back to his original time in Azeroth, turned on Karaz. In a decisive moment, he seized the shard and fatally stabbed Karaz with it, declaring that orcs would never again be used as pawns. This act marked a pivotal shift in Garrosh's journey, as he took control of his destiny and aimed to reshape the fate of the orc clans on his own terms. Traveling to a nearby Warsong encampment, Garrosh introduced himself as a stranger with no clan, but claimed his heart belonged to the Warsong. Speaking boldly, he declared that he had come to prevent the Warsongs from becoming slaves and accused Grom of leading them willingly to such a fate. This insult led to Garrosh being challenged to a Mock Rogan, a duel of will, to prove his honor. He fought against 4 members of the Warsong clan who had failed to spot him on guard duty. Garrosh defeated his opponents, and the spectators remarked that he fought like Hellscream. Following Grom into his tent, Garrosh spoke cryptically about the grim fate awaiting the Orcish people, warning that Gul'dan would enslave their race to unseen masters by offering them a gift, and that Grom would be the first to accept it due to his intolerance of others taking it first. Garrosh revealed a shard from the Vision of Time and described the weapons he had wielded as warchief of the Horde on Azeroth, including mana bombs and iron stars. He urged Grom to rally the other Orcish clans against their true enemy and suggested taking the shard to the Stones of Prophecy to reveal the truth. Grom cautiously agreed, threatening to take Garrosh's head if he was lying. Garrosh replied that if he could not convince Grom, his life meant nothing. Garrosh watched as Grom took the shard to the elemental spirits, who showed him and the shaman the truth of Garrosh's words. Gul'dan's pact with Kil'jaeden, the drinking of demon blood, revealing that Grom had indeed been the first to do so, the first and second wars against the humans, their defeat by the Alliance, and the withdrawal from demon magic that left the Orcish people broken. However, Garrosh intentionally concealed the truth of Grom's redemption at Demonfall Canyon by killing the Elder Shaman who had seen ahead and interrupting the vision before Grom could witness it. When Grom emerged from the vision, he vowed that he would not allow his people to be enslaved and sent runners to the other clans to share what he had learned. He called on Garrosh to stand by his side and fight with the Warsong, acknowledging the long road ahead. Garrosh proudly declared that he would fight to the death. Gul'dan sent a message to the orcs promising them untold power. In response, Grommash Hellscream dispatched Garrosh, disguised as a messenger, to uncover more about the sinister orcs' intentions. Gul'dan revealed that he had seen a vision, a legion seeking the orcs as their vanguard. Much to Gul'dan's surprise, Garrosh knew that serving this legion meant drinking the blood of Manaroth and enslaving the orcs to demonic masters. Enraged by Garrosh's accusations of slavery and proclaiming himself a god, Gul'dan ordered the guards to remove the messenger. Garrosh swiftly slew the guards. Undeterred, Gul'dan declared that in 3 days, the orcs would drink Manaroth's blood on the mountaintop and march to victory. At this, Garrosh lowered his hood, revealing his true identity. He told Gul'dan that in 3 days, Grommash would also stand on that mountain, but he would lead the orcs to embrace their true fate instead. On the fateful day when the orcs were poised to drink the blood of Manaroth and become slaves to the Legion, Garrosh stood alongside his father Grommash Hellscream to confront Gul'dan and deliver the Warsong clan's answer to his offer of power. In this alternate universe, Grommash rejected Gul'dan's enticement to drink the blood, and Garrosh orchestrated an ambush on the Warlock and Manaroth using the orcs' advanced technology. As the pivotal moment arrived, Garrosh's Iron Star was launched at Manaroth, creating a crucial distraction. This gave Grommash the opportunity to execute the demon. When Manaroth's dying explosion threatened to take Grommash's life, Garrosh heroically pushed his father out of harm's way, saving him from the fate that had befallen him in the Prime timeline. With Manaroth defeated and the threat averted, Garrosh pulled a stunned Gul'dan to his feet. He then drew a fell-bloodied gorehowl from the demon's corpse and tossed it to his father. Grommash proclaimed their victory and independence to the gathered orcs, declaring that they were conquerors, never slaves. This triumphant moment was the culmination of Garrosh's interference in the timeline, leading to the formation of the formidable Iron Horde. Garrosh provided Blackhand with schematics for advanced machinery, rising to prominence as one of the warlords of the Iron Horde, and the leader of the Warsong clan, while his father served as war chief over all the clans. Garrosh also enlisted Poly Rocket Spark and the Black Fuse Company to develop the technology essential for the Iron Horde's infrastructure within Grimrail Depot, and issued orders for the capture of Gruul. He was present when Grommash quote-unquote convinced Ner'zhul and his Shadowmoon clan to join the Iron Horde. Khadgar and Chromie witnessed Garrosh's ambitious vision in Nagrand's Mountains, where he suggested naming the new citadel in the heart of Tanaan, Hellfire. Garrosh was personally responsible for orchestrating the Iron March's invasion of Azeroth. He ordered Zayla to seize Upper Blackrock Spire as the forward base for the invading force, where a doomsday weapon capable of making Blackrock Mountain erupt and obliterate large swaths of the continent, including Stormwind, was to be constructed. This aggressive strategy highlighted Garrosh's relentless pursuit of power and his determination to reshape the world according to his vision. The Draenei, under the leadership of Yrel, blamed Garrosh for the fall of Telar, referring to him as the son of Hellscream. Garrosh was located in Gramashar when the Horde Alliance launched an attack on the settlement. He engaged in combat with the adventurers Durotan and Yrel, but was interrupted by Thrall, who challenged him to a mock Garah. Their duel took place at the Stones of Prophecy, the site where Garrosh had first learned of his father's redemption. As they clashed, Garrosh insisted that everything he did was for the Horde. Thrall retorted that Garrosh had failed the Horde. Enraged, Garrosh attacked Thrall with his bare hands, shouting that Thrall had made him warchief. "You left me to pick up your pieces. You failed me," he bellowed. With the upper hand, Garrosh taunted that Thrall never had the strength of a true warrior. Thrall countered that his strength lay not in being a warrior, but in being a shaman, and he called upon the elements to bind Garrosh. As Garrosh struggled against the elemental forces, he roared that Thrall had made him what he was. Thrall, resolute, responded that Garrosh had chosen his own destiny. With a final decisive bolt of lightning, Thrall ended Garrosh's life. After Garrosh's death, his soul was confined to the realm of Revendreth to atone for his many crimes. Due to his immense reservoir of anima, the Venthyr utilized him as one of their reliable workhorses, continually extracting his vital energy even as the Shadowlands began to suffer from an anima drought. Eventually, Garrosh's soul was cast into the maw and imprisoned in the Sanctum of Domination, where Soul Renderer Dormazane continued the relentless extraction of his anima to fuel the Maw Swarm armies. Despite Dormazane's best efforts, Garrosh proved remarkably resistant to the usual torture methods. Nonetheless, the Soul Renderer looked forward to spending millennia discovering his weakness, taking perverse pleasure in the challenge Garrosh presented. The heroes of Azeroth eventually confronted Dormazane, who continued to torment Garrosh to unleash waves of anima against his enemies. When the Soul Renderer was defeated, Garrosh broke free from his chains.
They said I must answer for my crimes, repent for my sins. But every choice I made, I would proudly make again. You will submit. I submit to no one! Not you! Not the jailer! And not that coward thrall! For the Horde!
Later, Thrall confided in the spirit of his mother, Draka, expressing his lingering guilt over Garrosh's actions. Draka reassured him that Garrosh had chosen his own path. Thrall insisted it was he who had set Garrosh on that path, but Draka disagreed, saying that all Thrall had done was offer him a choice. While Garrosh's path had ended in destruction, Thrall's journey continued forward, carrying the lessons and burdens of the past. During Azeroth's first Kosharg festival at Razor Hill, the spirit of Grommash Hellscream manifested, sharing a poignant revelation. He expressed his deep regret at not being alive to guide his son down a better path. Grommash hoped that Garrosh's tragic fate would serve as a stark warning to the rest of the orcs, emphasizing the importance of wise leadership and the consequences of unchecked ambition. And that's going to do it for this one. Hopefully you did enjoy. As always, take care of yourself. You're doing great. Life's hard enough as it is. You don't need to be harder on yourself. And I'll see you in the next one.